Alright, imagine this. It's a regular afternoon just like any other, and you're a 17-year-old full of life, ready to conquer the world. You've got your whole future ahead of you, about to sit your first tertiary entrance exam, maybe even dreaming of becoming a professional cricketer. But then, everything changes in a split second. It's November 4th, around 5:45 in the evening, in North Perth, Western Australia. You're cruising in your white Ford Laser, just trying to make a right turn. But out of nowhere, a blue Cortina barrels down the road. Next thing you know, you're getting T-boned, and your life just got flipped, literally and figuratively. Now, the injured plaintiff, our unfortunate protagonist, didn't just walk away with a few scrapes. Oh no! He walked away with some pretty brutal injuries: a ruptured spleen, lacerated kidney, liver damage, internal bleeding, whiplash, and a concussion. Sounds rough, right? Well, it gets worse. He also got hit with post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and, oh yeah, a shoulder injury that kept nagging like a bad sequel no one asked for. But hey, this is where things start to get interesting. The injured plaintiff, understandably, filed a claim against the at-fault driver. I mean, who wouldn't? He was a promising young cricketer, and now he's dealing with injuries that make walking down the street feel like an Olympic event. So he goes to court hoping for some kind of justice, and maybe a bit of cash to help cover those life-altering injuries. Now you'd think this would be straightforward, right? But no, of course not. It's early 2000s courtroom drama at its finest. Enter the at-fault driver, who's not just sitting back quietly. He claims the plaintiff didn't give way properly and says, "Hey, maybe you were a bit at fault too." Classic move, right? And to top it all off, the whole thing got even messier because, wait for it, the shoulder injury. Yeah, the at-fault driver tried to argue that it wasn't even from the crash. Nope. According to him, maybe it was from, swimming, because who doesn't randomly tear a rotator cuff doing a few laps? Anyway, let's fast forward to the courtroom. We've got expert testimony, police reports, witness statements. Eyewitness A says the at-fault driver was speeding at 80 km per hour in a 60 zone and ran a red light. Eyewitness B, who didn't even see the crash, but was right behind the injured plaintiff, also claims the at-fault driver was going way too fast. Then there's police officer X, who showed up with skid marks, literal evidence, that screamed, yeah, someone was definitely speeding. The court's decision? Drumroll please? Well, the court said the at-fault driver was primarily to blame, but also slapped the injured plaintiff with 15% contributory negligence. Why? Apparently he didn't look carefully enough before crossing the intersection. So yeah, not ideal, but he still walked away with something. And by something, I mean a solid $117,010.45 in motor vehicle accident compensation. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, it could have been higher if it weren't for that 15% deduction. But hey, who's counting? Now let's talk numbers, because that's what everyone really wants to know, right? The injured plaintiff got $49,100 for pain, suffering, and generally losing the ability to enjoy life like he used to. The remaining amount, that covered everything from medical expenses to lost earning capacity. Apparently his cricketing dreams weren't totally realistic, but he did have a shot at becoming a police officer. Unfortunately, the injuries pretty much ended both of those career paths. Now, if you're thinking, this is where it ends. Oh no, there's always an update, isn't there? See, after all of this, you'd think the injured plaintiff would just get his money and move on, right? Not so fast. His psychological injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, those stuck around like a bad ex that just won't take a hint. And to make things worse, the shoulder injury that was supposedly from swimming? Yeah, that never fully healed. So while he might have gotten some justice in the courtroom, the long-term consequences were still looming. And before you go, remember, this isn't just some random made-up story. This is real. This is the justice system in action. It's messy, it's complicated, and sometimes it feels like you're being hit by a metaphorical truck long after the real one crashes into you. So, what do we take away from all this? Well, one thing's clear. If you ever find yourself in a motor vehicle accident, get legal advice and get it fast. Don't wait for things to spiral out of control. And hey, if the court's going to find a way to say you're even a little bit at fault, make sure you're not left empty-handed. The lesson? Life can hit hard, sometimes at 80 km per hour, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't fight back.